Welcome back to the Angry Man Podcast with Jason and Greg. So, what an incredible weekend of boxing we had. Ryan Garcia pulled off the upset win against Devin Haney, defying the odds, even though in reality the odds were probably skewed more so because of his antics over the last few weeks, because Ryan always had a puncher's chance to beat Devin Haney, and Devin has proven to be a bit chinny, and his defense has proven to be a bit suspect in some of his last fights. So, shout out to Ryan, though. He did pull it off, and now Ryan is in position to dictate some fights, some big fights. Now, Ryan has brought up a number of names since he won this past weekend versus Devin Haney. He's mentioned Gervonta Davis, but of course he's not going to quote-unquote drain himself back down in order to make a fight with Gervonta Davis. I think that ship has sailed. Tank Davis is a 130-pound fighter in reality, fighting at 135. The likelihood that he's going to allow Ryan Garcia to blow up to probably, Ryan looked like he was a middleweight, at least a middleweight, if not a super middleweight on fight night. We know Devin Haney blows up to being a middleweight on fight night at 140. So Ryan Garcia, 143, he was probably also a super middleweight during that time. There's no way that Gervonta Davis is going to do that. He's called out Jaron Ennis. I would love to see that fight. Boost needs to get the opportunity, but there's probably not a big fight there in terms of money. Conor Benn, Conor McGregor, all these names have come up, but there is a name that has not been brought up yet, and I'm curious, and I'm curious why it hasn't been brought up yet. I'm talking about in terms of content creators. I have seen it from a partner of mine on Twitter mention it, and it was something that I thought about directly after the fight. You got a whole story here, guys. One that would sell this fight and make it an absolute mega fight in the sport of boxing. And I know a lot of people are going to push back on this, but I don't care because I'm going to put it out there anyway because I do want to hear your thoughts on it, right? But when you think about Errol Spence versus Ryan Garcia, you have an absolute mega fight on your hands right there. That could be one of the biggest fights in the sport of boxing today if they were to make that fight. Now, Ryan Garcia has also mentioned Sebastian Fundora. So that means that he is willing to move up to 154. And we know Ryan has been willing to do all kinds of things that we did not expect. Shout out to Ryan, because I thought Ryan was going to end up being a prima donna a couple of years ago, and that he was never going to take on any of these opponents. He's already taken on Tank, and he's already taken on Devin Haney. So shout out to Ryan. There's a possibility that Ryan might think about this. Now, we haven't heard anybody mention it from Golden Boy or PBC or Errol or Ryan, but I would not be surprised if you start to hear rumblings about this over the next several weeks or in the next few weeks about the potential of a Ryan Garcia versus Errol Spence fight, because the fight makes sense. Ryan, popular name, popularized by his social media antics, popularized by his ability to sell with Gervonta Davis, popularized by whatever he is going to do from a pay-per-view standpoint with Devin Haney this past weekend. He has a name. And then when you think about Errol Spence also is popularized through social media, through YouTube and content creators, and he also has a resume in terms of pay-per-view sales. This would be a mega fight. And then when you combine it with the history that they have, the history of Derrick James and Errol Spence now leaving Derrick James for another trainer, whoever that trainer is going to be, there's a story there, right? The fact that Ryan Garcia was speaking negatively about Errol Spence here recently in the lead up to his fight with Devin Haney. There is a backstory there that I'm telling you would absolutely sell. Now, I know what a lot of the detractors are going to say. They're going to say, this fight isn't competitive. Why would Errol Spence want to make this type of fight? What is it proving? It doesn't do anything for his legacy. That's the argument that people are going to make because they have a fighter that they're supporting, that they're arguing that he's taking on opponents for quote unquote legacy, when in reality he's going to announce a fight on August 3rd or for August 3rd with an opponent that is not going to be competitive and it's more than likely for a significant bag. That's what all these fighters are doing. They're trying to position themselves for the biggest payday that they can make. Errol, I think, wants to be a champion at 154, but he could take a slight detour and make this fight with Ryan Garcia because at the end of the day, these fighters only have a short window to make the biggest money, to make the biggest purses that they possibly can before they retire, right? And build that generational wealth. So that's something that I believe that Team Spence and Ryan Garcia should absolutely consider. Now, when you think about who would win, personally, I think a lot of people feel that Ryan Garcia showed a side or an ability this past weekend that was above and beyond what we've seen in the past. I would argue that that is false. Ryan Garcia's footwork this past weekend was awful. His timing on a lot of his punches was awful. He just had an opponent that was in front of him that couldn't take his power, could not deal with the combination punch. And anytime Ryan Garcia put together any combination, even if he didn't land punch 1 or 2, 3, 4, and 5 did land. So that tells me that, Devin Haney just simply had holes in his defensive game. And I saw people saying Devin was reckless. How is it reckless when he's backing up and he simply cannot evade the punches that are coming towards him? Makes no sense whatsoever. I don't think Ryan performed better than expected. I just think that Devin Haney wasn't the fighter that people necessarily thought that he was. And we got criticized for saying that, he's experienced some favor or he's benefited from some favorable matchmaking. But that's neither here or there. In the ring with somebody like Errol Spence, who is going to be bigger. Errol will be bigger than Ryan. I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity. I'll probably use this picture as a thumbnail, but there's a picture of Errol and Ryan together when Errol was preparing for the fight with Terrence Crawford. They're standing right by each other. Ryan wasn't in camp, and Ryan looked like he had a considerable amount of body fat on him. Ryan looked small next to Errol. Errol was in camp. Errol was leaned out and still looked much, much broader, bigger than Ryan Garcia. Ryan won't have that type of advantage that he had against Devin Haney versus Errol. His range, Errol will be able to reach him. Errol's a southpaw, so I think the left hook is not going to land in the same manner. If he tries that Philly shell and try to kind of turn his back, Errol will be on. Because he's a southpaw, he'll be on the side of Ryan where he's kind of ducking, and he'll be able to hit him. You're not going to be able. You really can't use a Philly shell against a southpaw opponent, so none of that stuff would work. And it really didn't even work against Devin. Devin just really didn't know what to do with it. But at the end of the day, I don't think he would have much of a chance with Errol. But because Ryan is Ryan and he does the type of things that we wouldn't expect from Ryan, I would not be surprised that he would take the fight. But not only that, the fight would make him a ton of money. It would make him a ton of money, so it would be worth the risk for him to take on that type of opponent in Errol Spence. The backstory would be amazing. The lead up to it would be amazing. I would love to see that. So you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. Is it a possibility? I think so. I absolutely think you're going to start to hear rumblings about the possibility of these two guys fighting. Now, I'm not saying it's going to actually materialize, but I think there is a possibility that that you will start to hear rumblings about it, because I think Errol would consider it, and I certainly think Ryan would consider it as well. So you guys tell me what you think in the comment section in regards to the potential of this fight. Don't forget to hate, like, comment, and subscribe. This is the Angry Man Podcast, AM Sports Media, and I am out.